The massive viewing screens across the Galactic Empire's capital planet flickered to life. Billions of citizens from 1,000 different species gathered in public squares, their various appendages, tentacles, and sensory organs focused on the broadcast. The Empire's golden seal appeared, followed by the stern face of High Executor Vexilor, his 4 eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction. In the center of the Grand Execution Plaza, a small figure stood alone. Marcus Chen, barely 16 years old, kept his chin raised despite the heavy restraints binding his wrists. His dark hair fell across his eyes, but beneath the strands, those eyes burned with a defiance that made some viewers shift uncomfortably. The boy had been caught attempting to steal medical supplies from an Empire facility. Under normal circumstances, this would have meant imprisonment or forced labor, but Marcus had fought back, and in the struggle, an Empire guard had died. The law was clear. Any human who killed an Empire citizen faced immediate execution. High Executor Vexilor's voice boomed across the plaza and through every speaker in Empire space. Citizens of the Galactic Empire, today we demonstrate once again that no species, no matter how primitive, stands above our law. This human whelp took the life of one of our own. Justice will be served. The crowd in the plaza murmured their approval. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic stage, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Most species viewed them as aggressive primitives, barely civilized enough to be permitted trade rights. Their home planet, Earth, existed on the very edge of Empire space, tolerated but never truly accepted. Marcus stood straighter as the execution platform rose from the ground. He'd known this was coming from the moment he'd been captured. The medical supplies he'd tried to steal were for his younger sister, dying from a disease that Empire hospitals refused to treat in humans. He didn't regret trying. He only regretted failing. The execution device hummed to life, a sphere of pure energy that would disintegrate its target atom by atom. It was considered the most humane method by Empire standards, though the process took exactly 60 seconds. Long enough for the condemned to contemplate their crimes, short enough to avoid unnecessary suffering. As the sphere began to form around Marcus, he didn't beg or plead. Instead, he looked directly into the main camera drone hovering before him. His lips moved, forming words in his native language that the universal translators couldn't quite catch. Some viewers would later swear he had smiled. The energy sphere contracted, and Marcus Chen ceased to exist. High Executor Vexilor nodded in satisfaction. Let this serve as a reminder to all species within our borders. The Empire's justice is absolute. He paused, his mandibles clicking in what his species considered a smile. And let it particularly remind the humans that their kind are guests in our civilization, guests who must obey our laws or face the consequences. The broadcast ended, and life across the Empire returned to normal. Ships continued their trade routes, factories maintained their production, and billions of citizens went about their daily routines. The execution of one human boy was already forgotten by most. But in a small apartment on the human colony of New Singapore, a young girl named Lily Chen watched her brother die on a borrowed viewing screen. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the medicine he'd never been able to bring her. The neighbors who had pooled their credits to buy it from smugglers stood silent around her. And on Earth, in a location known to very few, a secure communication terminal began to beep. The room was sparse, almost monastery-like in its simplicity. Wooden floors, paper walls, and a single low table were the only furnishings. It could have been a meditation chamber from ancient Japan, except for the high-tech communication equipment discreetly built into one wall. A man knelt at the table, his back to the door. He wore simple black clothing, and his long, dark hair was tied back in a traditional style. His hands rested on his knees, perfectly still. He had been in this position for 3 hours, but showed no sign of discomfort. The beeping continued, insistent, but not urgent. The man didn't move. After exactly 5 minutes, the beeping stopped. A holographic message materialized in the air before him. The figure of an old woman appeared, her face deeply lined but her eyes sharp as laser cutters. "John," she said simply, "I'm sorry." The man's eyes opened. They were dark brown, almost black, and completely empty of emotion. "Your son is dead," the woman continued. "The Empire executed him on public broadcast. He was trying to help his sister, your daughter." She paused, seeming to struggle with the next words. "He died bravely." John Wick remained motionless for several long moments. Then, with deliberate slowness, he reached for the simple ceramic cup beside him and took a sip of tea. It had gone cold hours ago. "Thank you for informing me, Director," he said. His voice was quiet, controlled, but something in it made the holographic woman take an involuntary step back. "John, I know what you're thinking. Don't. The Accords state that no human military force may take action against the Empire without Security Council approval." John set down his cup with precise care. "I am not military. Not anymore." "John, please, think about what Marcus would want. Think about Lily. She needs medicine." Marcus knew that. John stood in one fluid motion, his movements containing a grace that seemed almost inhuman. The Empire denied her treatment. They executed her brother for trying to save her. What she needs now is justice. The director's image flickered. The Empire has 1,000,000 ships, billions of soldiers, technology we can barely comprehend. You're one man. "Yes," John agreed. He walked to a section of the paper wall and slid it aside, revealing an arsenal that would have made most military quartermasters weep with envy. Weapons from 100 worlds hung in perfect order, each maintained with obsessive care. "I am one man." His fingers trailed along the weapons before stopping at an ancient Earth pistol. A Glock 34, modified with alien alloys but still recognizable as the weapon it had been centuries ago. Beside it hung a simple knife, its blade folded 10,000 times in the traditional manner, but enhanced with molecular engineering that made it capable of cutting through starship hulls. "They called me Baba Yaga," John said softly, checking the pistol with practiced efficiency. "Do you know what that means, Director?" "The boogeyman," she replied. "No." John holstered the weapon and picked up the knife. "I was not the boogeyman. I was the one you sent to kill the boogeyman." The director's image wavered. "That was a long time ago. You've been retired for 15 years. You have a life now, a family." "Had." The word cut through her sentence like his knife through air. "I had a family." "You still have Lily." John paused in his preparations. For just a moment, something human flickered in his eyes. "Yes. And she will live to see another day. The Empire will see to that." "What do you mean?" But John had already severed the connection. He stood in his armory, surrounded by implements of death from across the galaxy, and began the meditative process of selecting his tools. Each weapon was chosen with careful consideration, each piece of equipment evaluated for its purpose. The Empire had rules about weapons: energy shields that could stop most projectiles, sensors that could detect power sources from kilometers away, automated defenses that could vaporize threats in microseconds. But they had never faced John Wick. In the records of Earth's shadow organizations, in files that officially didn't exist, his name appeared again and again: the impossible assassination on Proxima Station, the 13-minute war that ended the Syndicate uprising, the night when 300 trained killers entered a building to claim a bounty on his head, and only one limped out to tell the tale. He had walked away from that life when he met Helen. She had seen something in him beyond the weapon he had been forged into. Together, they had built something resembling peace, 2 children, a home, a future. Helen had died 3 years ago, taken by the same disease now killing Lily. The Empire had cures, treatments that could save her in days. But humans were not considered worthy of such advanced medicine. Too primitive, the Empire decreed. Too violent, too dangerous. They had no idea how right they were. John finished his preparations and moved to another section of his home. Here, a different kind of arsenal waited. Not weapons, but information. Contacts throughout human space and beyond. Favors owed by those who operated in the shadows between stars. Resources accumulated over a lifetime of being the best at what he did. He activated a secure channel, one that connected to places the Empire believed they had shut down years ago. A face appeared on the screen, scarred, weathered, but grinning with anticipation. John Wick. I heard you were out. I was. Now I'm not. The grin widened. The broadcast, that was your boy. Yes. What do you need? Everything. John pulled up star charts, trade routes, military deployments. The Empire's vast network laid bare by intelligence services they didn't know existed. Ships, safe houses, current location of High Executor Vexler. That's going to cost. Continental account. No limit. A whistle. Just like old times. Where do you want to start? John studied the data flowing across his screens. The Empire was vast, but it was also complacent. They believed their superiority was absolute, their control complete. They had forgotten that before humans reached the stars, they had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against each other. I need to send a message first, John said, something that will reach every corner of the Empire. What kind of message? John's eyes were cold as deep space. The kind written in blood. 3 days later, the Empire's primary communication relay station in the Vega system went dark. It was a minor inconvenience, likely a technical malfunction. Repair crews were dispatched immediately. They found the station intact but empty. 300 personnel, gone without a trace. No signs of struggle, no bodies. No evidence of what had happened. Only a single message painted on the main viewing port in what analysis would confirm was human blood. For Marcus Chen, this is the beginning, Baba Yaga. The Empire's response was swift and predictable. They increased security, deployed additional forces, and issued warnings about human terrorist activities. They prepared for an attack by a group, a cell, perhaps even a small fleet. They didn't understand they were being hunted by one man, a man who had spent 15 years letting his skills rust, trying to be something more than death incarnate, a man who had discovered that the universe was just as cruel among the stars as it had been in the darkest corners of Earth, a man who had lost everything that mattered and now had only one purpose left. The Empire had executed his son on live broadcast, believing it would serve as a lesson to humanity about their place in the galactic order. They were about to learn a very different lesson. The Meridian Station floated in the darkness between stars, a jewel of Empire technology. 5 kilometers long and housing over 1 million souls, it served as the primary trade hub for 7 systems. Its defenders boasted that nothing could breach its shields, that its automated defenses could destroy a fleet before it came within firing range. They were wrong about what constituted a threat. Security Chief Korax reviewed the overnight reports with growing unease. 3 more incidents in the past week. A patrol ship found drifting, its crew alive but unconscious, their memories of the past several hours completely erased. A weapons depot emptied without triggering a single alarm. A high-ranking Empire official discovered in his sealed quarters, unharmed but surrounded by images of every human he had ordered executed in the past decade. "Double the patrols," Korax ordered his subordinate, and implement Protocol 7. Sir, Protocol 7 requires authorization from... I have it. Korax's scales shifted color, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The Grand Admiral agrees. We're dealing with something unprecedented. What Korax didn't know was that John Wick had been on the station for 3 days. In the maintenance tunnels that ran like veins through the massive structure, John moved with patient purpose. The Empire's security focused on external threats, grand displays of power. They didn't understand that the most dangerous predator was the one already inside. He had spent those 3 days learning, observing, mapping every system and routine. The Empire's citizens believed themselves superior, but they were creatures of habit like any other. They trusted their technology absolutely, never considering that someone might use it against them. John's target was not the station itself, but what it represented. The Empire's control over trade, their stranglehold on resources that could save human lives. Medical supplies that could cure Lily sat in warehouses throughout the station, marked for distribution to Empire citizens only. That was about to change. At exactly Oro 300 station time, when the night shift was at its most complacent, John emerged from the shadows. He moved through the station like death itself, precise and unstoppable. Security systems failed in cascading sequence, each failure looking like a natural malfunction. Guards found themselves unconscious before they could raise alarms, their memories scrambled by neurotoxins that left no trace. By 0330, John stood in the station's primary control center. The night staff lay unconscious around him, breathing but harmless. He worked quickly, his fingers flying over controls as he implemented changes buried deep in the station's code. Back doors installed over previous visits to other facilities, waiting for this moment. When dawn came to Meridian Station, its citizens woke to find their world changed. Every restricted medical supply had been transported to human colonies. Every credit in the station's vast reserves had been transferred to accounts providing aid to species the Empire considered unworthy. Every weapon in the station's armory had simply vanished. And on every screen, in every home and shop and office, a single message played on loop. The Empire took my son. I will take everything else. Baba Yaga. The panic was immediate and absolute. 1 million citizens, members of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, discovered they were not safe. Not in their homes, not in their fortresses, not anywhere. High Executor Vexlor stood before the Empire's War Council, his 4 eyes blazing with rage. The holographic displays around them showed the cascade of incidents spreading across Empire space. 17 major facilities compromised, hundreds of officials finding themselves marked, their crimes against humanity documented and broadcast to their own families. Supply lines disrupted, military installations infiltrated. "One human," General Theric snarled, his tusks gleaming. "You're telling me one human is responsible for all of this?" "The evidence is undeniable," Intelligence Chief Melra replied, her tentacles writhing anxiously. "Forensic analysis of the few traces left behind match a single genetic profile. The tactical patterns are consistent. The psychological warfare elements all point to an individual operator." "Then find him and kill him!" Vexlor slammed his fist on the table. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not cower before a single primitive." "With respect, High Executor," Melra said carefully, "this is not a primitive. The humans call him Baba Yaga. Our linguistic analysts have studied the name. It's taken from their ancient mythology, a figure of supernatural vengeance. But the humans don't use it as mythology. They use it as fact." She activated a display showing intelligence reports that should never have existed. Before humanity joined the galactic community, this individual was already a legend among their shadow organizations. We've uncovered references to operations that should have been impossible. assassinations of targets in zero-gravity environments using projectile weapons, infiltration of facilities that make our best security look like children's toys, and most disturbing. She paused, knowing her next words would not be well received. He's never failed, not once. Every target he's ever pursued is dead. The silence that followed was suffocating. "Double the bounty," Vexilor ordered finally. 10 million credits. Make it 20. Every mercenary, bounty hunter, and assassin in the galaxy will come for him. "Sir," Melra ventured, "the humans have a saying about this individual. You don't hunt John Wick. You hide from him and pray he's hunting someone else." "Superstition," Vexilor spat. "He bleeds like any other human. Find him." But John Wick had no intention of being found until he was ready. On the remote world of Kashar, a gathering of the galaxy's most feared bounty hunters received the Empire's call. 200 of the deadliest beings in known space, each with their own legendary reputation. They laughed at the warnings about a single human. They boasted of how they would claim the bounty. John was already among them. He sat in the back of the tavern where they gathered, disguised as just another hopeful looking to make a name. He listened as they planned, as they shared intelligence the Empire had provided, as they divided up search sectors to maximize their chances. He waited until they had all committed, until every one of them had accepted the contract. Then he stood and walked to the bar, ordering a drink with a specific combination of ingredients. The bartender, a scarred veteran of countless underworld dealings, went pale. "That drink," the bartender whispered. "Nobody's ordered that in 15 years. "I know," John replied quietly. "Clear the staff areas. Now." The bartender didn't argue. He'd survived this long by recognizing death when it walked through his door. What followed would become legend in its own right. Security footage, corrupted but partially recovered, showed fragments of what occurred. John Wick, revealed in his true identity, facing 200 of the galaxy's deadliest killers in a confined space. The smart ones tried to run immediately. They didn't make it to the door. The brave ones attacked en masse. They discovered that their numerical advantage meant nothing in the tight quarters John had chosen, where only 3 or 4 could engage him at once. The clever ones tried to use the environment, the weapons, the chaos to their advantage. They learned that John had already accounted for every variable, every possible advantage they might seek. 17 minutes. That's how long it took. When Empire forces arrived, responding to emergency signals that had finally broken through John's jamming, they found a charnel house, 200 bounty hunters, the pride of their respective species, scattered like broken toys. And painted on the wall in multiple languages, ensuring every Empire species could read it. "Send more. Baba Yaga." The psychological impact rippled across the Empire. These weren't random civilians or soft targets. These were apex predators, beings who had made their livings dealing death, and one human had gone through them like paper. Bounty offices across the galaxy reported a phenomenon never seen before: hunters returning contracts, refusing the Empire's money. The few who gave reasons all said variations of the same thing. "I'm not suicidal." High Executor Vexilor's rage had transformed into something else, something he refused to acknowledge, but that kept him awake in his secured bunker. Fear. Analysis of his patterns, Intelligence Chief Melra reported to a much smaller, much more secretive gathering. "He's not random. Every target has been involved in either the execution of his son or the denial of medical treatment to humans. He's methodical, patient, and he's escalating." "What do you mean, escalating?" Vexilor demanded. "The early attacks were about resources, stealing medical supplies, disrupting our control. Then he moved to psychological warfare, making us afraid. The bounty hunter massacre was a statement. He's telling us that we can't hire our way out of this. We can't overwhelm him with numbers." Melra's tentacles had gone pale. "He's hurting us, High Executor. Like prey." Toward what? Toward you. The room erupted in angry denials, but Melra continued. Every action has drawn more of our forces inward. We've pulled back from frontier systems to protect core worlds. We've consolidated leadership in secure facilities. We've made ourselves a smaller, more concentrated target. You're saying we played into his plan? I'm saying he's been playing a different game than we thought. We assumed he wanted revenge through destruction. But look at his methods. No massive casualties, no destroyed colonies. He's precise, surgical. He wants something specific. Before Vexilor could respond, alarms began blaring. Not the standard alerts they had grown accustomed to, but the deep, primal warning of a direct breach of the facility itself. "Impossible!" someone shouted. "We're 30 kilometers underground! The shields!" The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in hellish red light. Security monitors flickered to life, showing nothing. Every camera feed normal, every checkpoint secure, every guard at their post. But the alarms continued. "Sir," a technician called out, his voice cracking with fear. "Internal sensors are detecting an atmospheric anomaly. Deck 7. "What kind of anomaly?" It appears to be tea, sir. Someone is brewing tea on Deck 7. In the red-lit confusion, no one noticed one shadow moving differently than the others. No one saw the figure slip through doorways that should have been sealed. No one realized that death had come to call until it was far too late. John Wick had arrived at the heart of the Empire. The time for messages was over. Now came the reckoning. Deep in his bunker, High Executor Vexilor felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Somewhere in the facility he commanded, protected by the most advanced security in the galaxy, a human was brewing tea. The same human who had carved a bloody path across Empire space to reach this moment. Vexilor had ordered the execution of Marcus Chen to send a message about the Empire's power. He was beginning to understand that messages could be answered. The Empire had believed humans were primitive, violent creatures who needed to be kept in check. They had mistaken humanity's restraint for weakness, their desire for peace as inability to wage war. They were learning that humans had not become peaceful because they were incapable of violence. They had chosen peace because they knew too well what they were capable of when pushed to war. And they had pushed John Wick past all limits. In the command center, screens began flickering. Not with system failures this time, but with images. A young boy standing proud even as he faced death. A girl dying of a curable disease. Thousands of humans denied basic rights, denied medicine, denied justice. And finally, a simple text message. "You took my son. Now I take everything you are." The hunt was over. The real work was about to begin. High Executor Vexilor stood in his personal command center, surrounded by the most elite guards the Empire could provide. 50 warriors from a dozen species, each equipped with weapons that could vaporize a city block. Energy shields hummed at maximum power. Automated defenses tracked every movement, ready to obliterate any threat in nanoseconds. It wouldn't be enough. The tea had been a message. Not a threat, but a courtesy. John Wick was telling them he was already inside, already past every defense. He was giving them time to prepare, to understand that what came next was inevitable. "Seal every access point," Vexilor commanded, his voice betraying none of the fear crawling through his organs. "Full lockdown. Nothing gets in or out." "Sir," his security chief reported, "we've lost contact with perimeter teams." "All of them?" "Yes, sir. Simultaneously." The lights flickered and died. This time, emergency power didn't activate. In the absolute darkness, 50 elite warriors raised their weapons, targeting systems searching desperately for a threat. A single light appeared, a small flame, no bigger than a candle. It illuminated a man sitting cross-legged in the center of the room, a cup of tea steaming gently before him. He wore simple black clothing, and his eyes were closed as if in meditation. Fire! Vexilor screamed. 50 weapons discharged at once. Energy beams that could pierce starship hulls converged on the lone figure. The air itself screamed in protest at the concentrated destruction. When the smoke cleared, the man was gone. So was the tea. "Behind you," a quiet voice said. Vexilor spun to find John Wick standing inches away, inside his personal shield bubble. Impossible. The shield was DNA-locked, keyed to Vexilor's specific genetic signature. No other being could enter it without being instantly incinerated. "How?" Vexilor whispered. "Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and fast-moving projectiles," John replied calmly. "But something moving slowly, patiently, presenting the right molecular signature at the right frequency. Your scientists never considered that threat. Why would they? Who has the patience to spend 3 days slowly phasing through a shield matrix?" The guards opened fire again, but John was already moving. Not with superhuman speed, but with an economy of motion that made him seem to flow between the energy bolts. Each step was precisely calculated, each movement serving multiple purposes. He had no weapons. He didn't need them. The first guard to engage in close combat lasted 2 seconds. John redirected the alien's own momentum, sending him crashing into 3 others. A strike to a specific nerve cluster. Knowledge gained from studying anatomical databases the Empire thought secure, and the guard was unconscious before hitting the ground. They came at him in waves, trained killers from across the galaxy. John moved among them like water, using their numbers against them. Every attack was redirected into another attacker. Every weapon discharge missed him and found another target. He was not fighting 50 opponents. He was conducting an orchestra of violence where they destroyed themselves. In less than 3 minutes, it was over. 50 elite guards lay unconscious or incapacitated around the room. Not dead, John had been precise about that. He wanted them alive to carry the message of what they had witnessed. High Executor Vexilor, backed against the far wall, his 4 eyes wide with terror. "What are you?" "I am a father," John replied simply. He picked up the cup of tea from where it had reappeared, taking a small sip. "You killed my son." "It was the law. He broke Empire law." "Your law." John set down the cup and approached slowly. "Your law that says human lives are worth less. Your law that denies medicine to dying children. Your law that executes boys for trying to save their sisters. The Empire is order. Without our laws, there would be chaos. There is already chaos. You just dress it in bureaucracy and call it civilization." John stopped a meter away. "But I'm not here to debate philosophy with you. You're here to kill me." Vexilor's voice had gone flat, accepting. "No." The word hung in the air, unexpected. "Death would be a mercy," John continued. "It would make you a martyr. The Empire would use your death to justify even harsher measures against humanity. More children would die." He shook his head. "No, High Executor. You're going to live." What?" John pulled out a small device, pressing it against Vexilor's chest. The High Executor gasped as nanobots flooded his system. "Not to kill, but to change." "A gift from human scientists," John explained. "Genetic modification at the cellular level, undetectable by your scanners, irreversible by your medicine." He stepped back as Vexilor began to convulse. "In about 30 seconds, you'll stabilize. You'll feel fine. Better than fine, actually. The nanobots will enhance your natural healing, extend your lifespan, cure any diseases you might have." "What? What have you done?" "I've made you human." John watched dispassionately as Vexilor's 4 eyes merged into 2, as his scales smoothed into skin, as his entire biology rewrote itself. Genetically, biologically, completely human. Your own laws now apply to you. Your own prejudices. Your own hatred. The transformation complete, Vexilor stared at his now human hands in horror. "Change me back. I can't. No one can. The process is one way." John turned to leave, then paused. "Your empire denies medical treatment to humans. Your successor has already been notified of your change. I wonder how they'll treat you now." "You can't. I am the High Executor." "You were." John walked toward the door. "Now you're just another human, subject to all the laws you helped create, all the restrictions, all the prejudice." He stopped at the threshold. "Your empire will demand you step down. You know this. No human can hold a position of authority. It's your own law." "They'll never believe." "The genetic scanners don't lie. Every test will confirm what you are now." John's voice carried no satisfaction, no gloating, just fact. "You'll live, Vexilor. You'll live a long, healthy human life, and every day, you'll experience what you put my people through." The facility's lights flickered back to life. Around the room, guards began to stir, groaning as consciousness returned. They would find their High Executor changed beyond recognition, faced with a reality that challenged everything the Empire stood for. But John was already gone. 3 hours later, chaos erupted across the Empire. The news of High Executor Vexilor's transformation spread faster than light. Medical scans confirmed the impossible. Their leader was now genetically human. The technology used was beyond their understanding, the process irreversible. The War Council convened in emergency session. Some demanded Vexilor's immediate execution as an abomination. Others argued he was still their leader, his mind unchanged, despite his altered biology. The debate raged for hours, broadcast across the Empire, and that was when John's true plan revealed itself. On every human colony, in every mixed-species settlement, beings watched their leaders argue about whether humanity was a disease or a condition. They watched the disgust on faces as council members recoiled from their former High Executor. They watched the fear as military leaders wondered if this transformation could be weaponized, spread like a plague. They watched the Empire's mask slip, revealing the true depth of its xenophobia. John had not just taken revenge on one being. He had forced the Empire to show its true face to every species under its rule. The uprising didn't start with humans. It started with the Canari, a gentle species who had suffered similar prejudices. Then the Malari, denied advanced technology because they were deemed insufficiently evolved. Then dozens of others, all the species the Empire had classified as lesser. Within days, half the Empire was in open revolt. John Wick sat in a medical facility on New Singapore watching his daughter sleep. The treatment had been administered 3 days ago, purchased with credits liberated from Empire treasuries. Lily's breathing was steady now, her color returning. She would live. "She's responding well," Dr. Chen, no relation, reported. "Full recovery expected within the week." John nodded, his eyes never leaving his daughter's face. She looked so much like her brother. The same stubborn chin, the same determined set to her features even in sleep. "There's a communication for you," the doctor added quietly. "From Earth. They say it's urgent." John considered ignoring it. His war was over. Vexilor transformed, the Empire in chaos, humanity's position forever changed. But old habits died hard. He activated his secure communicator. The director appeared, looking older than when they'd last spoken. "John, I suppose congratulations are in order. You've destroyed the most powerful civilization in the galaxy without firing a shot." "I fired many shots." "You know what I mean. No fleets, no armies, no weapons of mass destruction. Just one man with a very specific set of skills and a plan." She paused. "The Empire is offering terms. Full medical access for all species. Removal of genetic restrictions. Equal representation in government." "Good. They're also demanding you stand trial for your actions." John almost smiled. "Of course they are. I've been authorized to offer you immunity. Full pardon, a new identity, retirement wherever you choose. The governments of Earth are very grateful for what you've accomplished. No. The director blinked. No? I'll stand trial. John's voice was calm. Public. Broadcast across the empire. John, that's suicide. Even with the reforms, they'll find a way to execute you. Perhaps. He looked back at Lily. But the galaxy needs to see that humans hold ourselves accountable, that we're not the barbarians they believed us to be. One man's war ends. The peace needs something else. You've done enough, John. More than enough. Let someone else. There is no one else. He cut the connection. 1 month later, John Wick stood in the same plaza where his son had died. The irony was not lost on anyone. The galaxy watched as he faced a tribunal of multiple species, answering for his actions. The deaths he'd caused, the chaos he'd unleashed, the transformation of High Executor Vexilor, who sat in the witness section, still struggling with his human form. John admitted to everything. He offered no defense beyond a father's grief. He stood straight and proud, just as his son had. The tribunal deliberated for days. The galaxy held its breath. When they returned, their verdict shocked everyone. John Wick, the Chief Justice intoned, you are found guilty of all charges. However, this tribunal also recognizes that your actions, while illegal, exposed fundamental injustices in our civilization. You acted not for personal gain, but from grief and a desire for justice. The justice paused, consulting with the others. Therefore, this tribunal sentences you to exile. You are banished from Empire space for a period of 100 years. You may not return on pain of death. The plaza erupted in confusion. Exile was barely a punishment for someone who had no desire to remain. It was, everyone realized, the tribunal's way of removing a problem while acknowledging the legitimacy of his grievances. John bowed slightly to the tribunal, then turned and walked away. No guard stopped him. No one tried to prevent his leaving. The message was clear. The Empire wanted him gone, but they feared making him a martyr even more. He returned to Earth, to his simple home with its paper walls and wooden floors. Lily was waiting for him, fully recovered and furious. You should have let me come, she said, throwing her arms around him. I would have testified. Told them what Marcus was trying to do. It wasn't necessary, John replied, holding his daughter close. The galaxy knows. So what happens now? John considered the question. The Empire would survive, but changed. Humanity's position was secure, their rights established in blood and law. His son was still dead. Nothing would change that. But Lily lived, and millions of other human children would live because of what had transpired. Now, he said quietly, we remember your brother. We lived the lives he wanted us to have. And we ensure this never happens again. How? John smiled, the first genuine smile since receiving news of Marcus's death. You're going to study. Medicine, law, whatever calls to you. You're going to be part of the generation that builds the peace. That makes sure no parent, human or otherwise, loses a child to prejudice and fear. And you? I'm going to tend my garden. Perhaps teach if anyone wishes to learn. The galaxy has seen what one human can do when pushed to war. Now let them see what we can do in peace. Years passed. The Empire evolved, becoming something closer to its original ideals of unity and justice. Species mingled freely. Medical technology flowed to all who needed it. The name Baba Yaga faded from a threat to a legend, a reminder that individuals could still change the course of civilizations. High Executor Vexilor, now simply Citizen Vex, worked in a human hospital. He had embraced his transformation, becoming one of the leading advocates for interspecies medical exchange. He never spoke publicly about John Wick, but sometimes, late at night, he would touch the spot where the nanobots had entered, and whisper a grudging thanks. John Wick aged gracefully in his home on Earth. Students came to learn, drawn by stories of the man who had brought an empire to its knees. He taught them patience, discipline, and above all, the responsibility that came with power. He never spoke of his past deeds, focusing instead on building a future where such actions would never be necessary again. And in a cemetery overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a simple stone marked Marcus Chen's grave. Fresh flowers appeared there every week without fail. The inscription read, "Son, brother, hero. His death changed the galaxy. His life changed our hearts." The Galactic Empire had executed a human boy on live broadcast, not knowing his father was Baba Yaga. They had learned too late that some lessons are written in blood and sorrow. But from that tragedy came transformation. From vengeance came justice, and from one man's grief came a galaxy's redemption. The story ended not with conquest or destruction, but with an old man tending his garden and a young woman graduating from medical school, ready to heal the wounds of the past and build a better tomorrow. Sometimes, the greatest victory is not in what you destroy, but in what you leave behind. John Wick had left behind a galaxy forever changed, a daughter who would continue his legacy of strength tempered by compassion, and a message that would echo through the stars for generations. Never underestimate the power of a father's love or the determination of humanity when pushed beyond all limits. For in their restraint lies not weakness, but wisdom. And in their fury lies the power to reshape the very foundations of the universe. The Empire had learned this truth. The galaxy would not forget.